Suffering as Teacher, a Dharma talk by Ciardi, and a teaching from Reverend Jaganath Carrera, both read by Reverend Amba, Wallace. In this recording, I will first read a Dharma talk written by someone who was recently diagnosed with stage 2 pancreatic cancer. It is food for thought and written from the perspective of a Buddhist meditation practice. This will be followed by a reading from our beloved Reverend Jaganath Carrera on suffering as teacher, what dukkha means, and how to alleviate it. Who am I? Who are you? Not easy questions to answer. Examining your mind is an important part of Dzogchen Buddhist meditation practice. Before students delve into the mind, there are many meditation practices that prepare us to go deeper into who we are. The preliminaries consist of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind towards Dharma. The 4 are precious human existence, impermanence, cause and effect, or karma, and lastly, the defects of samsara. It is said that if you only meditate on one thing for the rest of your life, the most important subject is impermanence. Let's examine how impermanence can determine who we are. In our culture, we tend to shy away from any thought of impermanence. We shield our children from the concept of death and that circumstances can change. To make children feel secure, we tell them that Mommy and Daddy will always be here for you. We are always safe in our home, and many others of what I'd like to call pretty little lies. The reality is tragedies happen. A parent can be in an accident, divorce, a job change that involves moving away, etc. I don't know if this is a good practice, but when things go wrong, it must be difficult for a child to process. In contrast, in a Tibetan home, the concept of death and change is introduced at an early age. The thought of unexpected death is not feared, but used as motivation to do as much good for others every day. It is common practice for monks to turn their teacup over at night to remind them that there is no guarantee you will wake up the next morning. This may sound morbid, but once you embrace the concept, it is very liberating. So how can we apply impermanence and change to our daily life? Our lives are constantly changing. Sometimes the changes are welcomed, and sometimes not so much. Think back to who you were in kindergarten and how different you were in middle school. Then high school presents more adaptation. Many times, college becomes a time for reinvention, and then careers change the concept of who we are. When we examine who we are, we find that in each step, we are conforming to what will make us popular and successful, but not necessarily who we really are. This is not a terrible thing because by nature we are dominated by our senses and emotions. Buddhists call this human ignorance because we are so influenced by thoughts of duality. The opportunity for growth lies in the way we deal with changes, especially when the change is not welcomed. Let me say that again. The opportunity for growth lies in the way we deal with changes, especially when the change is not welcomed. Keep in mind that some changes that seem negative at the time, such as job loss, may open a door to a greater opportunity. When a traumatic change occurs, such as a divorce or another unexpected crisis, the way we deal with it can create much suffering and emotional distress. This is the critical time to apply the concept of impermanence. We think of death in terms of the physical body, but let's apply the concept of death in a different way. When we go through a crisis, instead of grasping to who we were, apply the concept that the person who we were, not our physical body, experienced death. Through the death of who you were brings the rebirth of a new person, a person that can move on and create a better life for themselves and others. It is the grasping of who we were that creates suffering. Embrace that a new, more evolved person can only be born out of death of our concept of our old selves. When we boil it down, much of our suffering is due to how we deal with change. Moving forward in a positive way without grasping to what was is not easy, but when you practice it, you find crisis and unexpected change much easier to deal with. I am now experiencing a major crisis in my life. I realize that many of the things I love to do, I may not be able to do again. I don't know if I will ever be able to teach yoga, play hockey, or gig with my band. When my crisis hit, I let that mindset die and became reborn into a person that will move forward with whatever abilities life will afford me. Because I was able to do that, I have not suffered any mental anguish that normally would accompany my diagnosis. I work every day in meditation to alleviate the physical pain, but my practice isn't always strong enough. Yet, I am getting better at it. In the meantime, my doctors have marveled at my mental attitude and how crucial it is in fighting my disease. I am not special, and for the most part consider myself an old fool who only has my amazing teachers to thank and the instruction they have generously shared. To answer the question, who am I? You really only need to find that out when your mind is freed from the physical body. Don't rush to find that out. And now from Reverend Jaganath Carrera, Suffering as Teacher. Dukkha, pervasive, persistent uneasiness or dissatisfaction. Other meanings of the word dukkha: discontent, distress, anxiety, stress, pain, uneasiness, difficulty, sorrow, trouble, to cause or feel pain, unpleasant. Dukkha is often translated as pain, sorrow, or suffering. It is more than that. It is a persistent sense of precariousness, a baseline of uneasiness or anxiety that forms the backdrop of our lives. It is a constant discomforting feeling or belief that life can't be trusted. Dukkha is the pathology of ignorance. Dukkha, in its most insidious form, is a background of quietly screeching violins, warning us of possible danger or pain behind the closed doors of our decisions, plans, or relationships. Dukkha can't exist without ignorance, not knowing our true nature. One path to eliminating dukkha presented in the Yoga Sutras is unwavering discriminative discernment, viveka, always looking for what is changeless within the changing, differentiating between pleasure and true happiness, and perceiving the difference between the body-mind self and the true spirit, true self. Spirit is all-pervading. It is life. It animates all aspects of matter. But even so, matter can obscure spirit. Viveka is discerning the spirit that is obscured by matter, the universal or divine unconditional love hidden behind fear and selfishness, the eternal now that is always present beyond the passage of time. We might think that sukha, happiness, is the opposite of dukkha, but it might be more helpful to think of faith as the opposite of dukkha. The Yoga Sutras teach that the entire universe exists to give us experiences and liberation. It would not be incorrect to understand nature's work and goal to be based on love. Out of love, the universe manifests and acts. When we learn to trust that we are loved, that our mistakes are already forgiven, the universe is a benevolent place. When we experience this for ourselves, then and only then are we truly free to accept and fully live and give love. Trust also eradicates greed, lust, fear, anger, and resentment. Armed with faith, dukkha loses its sway over us. How do we develop faith? Through cultivating gratitude, by daily remembering the gifts we have been freely given: our minds, our friends, the sun, the scent of a rose, the thirst for knowledge, laughter, song, a tasty peach, and the great sages and saints of all faith traditions who selflessly pour out compassion and wisdom for our benefit. Gratitude ripens into devotion, and devotion brings with it trust, faith. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Peace, Peace, Peace. May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light.